Listen. So I show up to the screening of this movie, and I kid you not, some kid stares straight at the poster and goes, 11? But I haven't seen the other 10. Let me explain. Now, I believe it was confirmed by the Library of Congress, and there will probably be a criterion on it, declaring that Rocky 2 is the best of the franchise. That's just something that's signed, sealed, and delivered. Because when you consider that every Rocky sequel does that thing where it begins by showing you the entirety of the final fight from the previous Rocky movie, it just shows you that Rocky 2 already has the best part of Rocky 1. On top of that, my dude races a train, he knocks out Apollo in the rematch by knocking himself out too, and then ends it with the best line since Luke met his daddy. Yo, Adrian! I did it! That said, all of them are up on Google for free, which I think is pretty cool, so definitely go binge them all, but the main one I want to cover is 4, since that's what Creed 2 is following up, and it's the one that has Apollo Creed's death. You see, Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, after being rivals, started to sweat together in shorty shorts, and then they got completely drenched when this Russian came to town. See, a lot of people make fun of Rocky 4 because it randomly has robots, and Drago himself is practically a white bane on Jews, but when you really dissect it, Rocky 4 is the ex machina of the 70s, forewarning us about AI. And while some call it propaganda, it was in fact Rocky 4 that rescued us and fixed our foreign relations.
And who could have predicted that this relatively inarticulate rambling at the end of a boxing match would go down as one of the most important speeches of the 20th century?
Everybody's insane!
I think it always bothered Rocky that he never received much credit for his role in ending the Cold War. Reagan never once thanked him, and I think that's part of the reason that he faded from the spotlight.
But then Rocky 5 came out and that was just trash.
God damn. Old America.
In Rocky Balboa, he reconnects with his son, which is interesting when you consider that Stallone's real son starred in the earlier movies as a kid, and then in real life he died in a car crash. So for Rocky Balboa to be about reconnecting with his son is really touching.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
Years later, Creed was announced, which would obviously be telling the story of Apollo Creed's son. And while a lot of people argue that a bunch of boxing movies just do the same thing over and over again, I was excited for this one because Ryan Coogler was directing it. It was starring that kid from The Wire. And I don't know if it was because all of you were stuffing yourself with turkey recently and y'all haven't seen the first one in a while, but for anyone who said the sequel was superior, nah. I'm not even going to start with the movie, but the soundtrack instead, because I don't know if you guys have ever followed Coogler in the way that he does his OSTs, but he pretty much finds artists from that place and lets them take over the sound. So you have the Roots, who are from Philly, Meek Mill, who's from Philly, and if y'all haven't heard the song Waiting for My Moment from the first movie, then just go back and listen to your La La Land soundtrack. You then have Rocky's story, who at this point in time has all his friends dying around him.
Time beat him. Time, takes everybody out. It's undefeated.
And we all know that Stallone looks better than some 20-year-olds out there, right? So for them to put so much makeup on this dude and yet have the spy who didn't say anything for half of his movie rob our boy Sly is inconceivable. You then have the shots that were super cinematic like this one, and another one where the fight takes place completely in one shot, and then the final fight that just drenched you with its walk-up music. It used the original score better than most of the original Rocky movies, and it has a story about a lost son who overcomes his father's shadow as the once legend becomes a coach, and it's the perfect addition to this franchise. And then Creed 11 just says nah to all of that. Now look, I don't hate the sequel. I think it's a lot of fun, but in 2018, you got film Twitter who's so crazy that if you were to even call out one little thing that's actually wrong in a movie, people just think you're a hater. Then you can go, bro, there's a camera in that shot, and people just go, can you just like something for once? So while I don't think Creed 11 is a dud, I just think it detracts a lot from the first one. Like if he had already overcome his dad's shadow, right? If that was what the first one was all about, I don't really know what he's doing in this movie. They literally turned Adonis into Anakin Skywalker with the amount of times he was just randomly complaining in this one. I'm not saying you shouldn't be mad about the dude who killed your dad, but those dudes were already living in a tundra, so you already won. Have you not seen the 30 for 30? Rocky already avenged you. Have you not looked at your waist? You're already the world champ. Then this man has the audacity to look at this mountain of a human being and think, He has a shot. I legit thought he was going to die in the first round just looking at how big one was from the other. Like in the press conference, all this other dude did was extend his arm and he kamehameha'd Creed across the stage. Viktor's reach was so long that I wasn't even worried about him hitting Creed. I was worried about him punching the first row. Man was cracking his neck in this movie more than he was saying words. Like, the only way he was communicating was through more snack. And when you consider that Viktor was truly living in poverty, you know, not just because his dad lost and didn't have a job, it wasn't because they literally had no money, it was because the entirety of Russia had disbanded them. Russia, the piece of land that takes over a quarter of your globe. And not only that, but when you look at the fact that his mom even left him, she straight up switched sides just because she considered them to be losers. This man had more to prove than anyone else. This movie should have been called Drago's Revenge because he was the most interesting part of the movie. Now, yeah, Creed does propose in this movie, and we never have a wedding because I think they're saving that for a sequel, and there's even that bit with their kid who shares the same hearing condition as Bianca, which I guess they're also saving for a sequel, and they continue forcing Bianca's music, which I guess they're also saving for a sequel, but it's the Rocky bit that I feel is the part that's getting stretched out, because there's this beautiful shot at the end of Creed 2 where Creed wins, which was impossible, and Rocky decides to sit on the outside of the ring as he looks in on them celebrating from the sidelines, and it's this beautiful shot that shows you that Rocky, for the first time ever, is stepping back so he's not in the limelight. But I thought that was what the first Creed was about. Again, I'm just saying that the first one was better in my opinion, but if what you're cementing with this one, and according to Stallone, he says so too on social media, is that Creed is now going to have the entire spotlight and this is the last time we're ever going to see Rocky, then y'all better be serious about it and make sure that he's over with his grandson saying this is us, because if we're going to move on, then we have to move on. But who am I kidding? If Mr. T's son comes out of nowhere for the third one, I'm buying tickets day one. Thank you guys for watching this video, and shout out to Ellie Rainey for listening to all of the LME recommendations, and for everyone else who's always watching. You know, I know a lot of people were hyped for Creed 2 as much as I was, and again, I think it was good. I know some of y'all gonna be like, why are you hating? I liked it. I just loved Creed 1, but y'all crazy if you think that this isn't better than the first one. I don't see it. I really don't. In the fighting, in the directing, in the cinematography, in the soundtrack, they kind of switched it to kind of have that LA feel to it, which they were only in LA for like 30 minutes and then they go to Russia. But I don't know, I'm curious to know your thoughts. I did just pass in Philly, and I know that a lot of people have given recommendations. You know, I've tried Geno's, Pat's, Tony Looks, Woodrow's, and honestly, you know, leave it to Creed. Max's is the best one I've tried so far, so if there's one that I'm missing that you think is better, maybe I'm ordering it wrong. Maybe I should order it with taste or something. Some of these other places, they were just trash. I just had to say it like that. There was another spot, though, in Philly that I thought was really good. Philly's got this place called the Reading Terminal, and there's this place called the Dutch Eatery. First of all, that entire place is food heaven, but that Amish breakfast was freaking insane. I literally bought Lil Uzi tickets that I'm going to be going to a concert just so I have an excuse to drive back to Philly from New York so I can eat something from there. But I'm curious to know your thoughts about this. What's the best Philly cheesesteak? Why did Creed beat someone who was 5 times his size? And is everyone excited for a third Creed film? Who should he be fighting? What should the story be? Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll send you a Philly cheesesteak from Max's.